Hello there everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joesephyr and welcome to another Should You Pull video for Dissidia Final Fantasy. Now, you may have seen the video that I made yesterday, which was a bit of a joke play on things with regards to Kam'lanaut and Paladin Cecil's banners that are coming up very, very soon. And it's a very, very hyped up banner, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to kind of poke fun at it. But let's actually talk about Paladin Cecil and Kam'lanaut and what the LD boards for Kam'lanaut, the LD and Burst that are massively awaited for Paladin Cecil have to offer in the near future, and why they're quite as anticipated as they are. So if that's all stuff that you're interested in, as well as looking at the Lufenia mission with what comes with them, etc., then of course stay tuned and keep on watching. Before we get started, of course, don't forget to check out all of my social media links in the description box below, including Twitter, Twitch, Discord, and Patreon. Twitch this week, I've been taking a little bit of a step back tonight because, well, I may be streaming, I may not be, but as you can see, I've literally just left the hospital, as you may have seen on my social medias, because I had another health scare. Like, don't worry, I'm okay, but I wanted to come back and make this video as soon as I could because I wanted to kind of put myself into a good mind space, doing something constructive, getting my creative flow going on, stuff like that. So I just want to reassure everybody that I'm okay. Certainly right now, I will have things that are going to happen in the future, but I'm fine. Don't worry about it. With regards to Patreon, I always shout out one of my patrons every time I release a video, and today that person is going to be Gino Jiraiya, who is brand new to my patron. And I just want to say that I really enjoyed making this particular title card because the character they chose was Kais, and I legitimately really love the cutscene that Kais comes in on, and the opening cutscene to the Crystal Bearer, so this was really good fun to make, so thank you very much for that. And if you'd like a title card just like Gino has, then perhaps consider becoming a patron yourself, and you can get other stuff, including voice chats with me, get involved with Would You Pull, and all of that other good stuff. Don't forget to check out, of course, all of the other resources out there for Dissidia that are available to you, and don't forget to check out all of the other content creators out there. I do actually want to give a quick shout out to QE as well for the video they released recently about the way things are going with JP and stuff like that, and I just wanted to turn attention to that because it's actually a very interesting video. So if you haven't watched that already, definitely go check that out too. So before we get stuck into Paladin Cecil and all of the very exciting things that come along with him, let's talk about the banners themselves and of course Kam'lanaut. Now I made a little bit of a joke at Kam'lanaut's expense yesterday with the joke video that I made, but to tell you the truth, I actually really like Kam'lanaut. I've really enjoyed him, like, every time I've had him. I do already have his LD because I really like his character design. I like the way that he works. And his LD boards come around that actually make him significantly better in other ways we'll talk about in just a moment. But the banners themselves, the one that contains Kam'lanaut, will have Kam'lanaut's full kit, Paladin Cecil's burst only, so this is not where you want to be going if you want his LD, and then it's also going to carry Barret and Fang's EXs. So not EXs that you're going to be super excited about. Like, I don't actually have Barret, and if I got him, I'd be like, sure. So EX is not worth worrying about, really. And then the Paladin Cecil banner will contain his full kit, including his LD, his EX if you don't already have it, and of course his burst. And then it's also going to carry Jecht, who is a little bit meh, and then Laguna, who was a late game EX+, so maybe you might find some use for him if you don't already have him, but I certainly wouldn't go out of my way for him. But going back to Kam'lanaut, if you want to know more about Kam'lanaut, I did actually release a video for him when he last came out with his LD, and I said that he was a relatively easy skip back then. And the truth is that he kind of still is now, but he is still actually a very good character. He carries a lot of weight behind him because he has a lot of really strong buffs, like he has party auras that are carried along with his Peerless Hero buff that comes from his LD that gives party Brave overflow, and then Brave gain for himself whenever he attacks anything, Brave regen. He now, with his LD board, now adds attack onto that, so that he has a grand total of 55% attack aura on top of everything else that he's got, but his main focus is his paralysis from his Glassification Plus, which until now you could only get by breaking an enemy from using his Brave Plus Plus Plus, which is mostly still true. However, if you look at his Brave Plus as added to by his LD board, it makes it significantly better. It's a 4 bravery hit that gives you an instant and free turn if it breaks the target. So that's the thing. Now, when you use Brave Plus 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 now, it has a gravity effect that reduces their bravery by half before the bravery attacks happen. So this is going to make it a lot easier for him to get Glassification Plus and get that guaranteed paralysis off of it. And it also, and I can't stress how important this bit is enough, extends any buffs he has by a turn. So because Peerless Hero and Ducal Charisma, Desire of Provenance, they're all such important buffs to him. He doesn't really like using his Bravery ++, because if you're not getting the free turn, it means you're losing 2 turns out of it. If you are getting the free turn, you're still losing it and it's still counting down. But with this, it means that you're still just getting a really powerful, it's all free hits, essentially, for Classification Plus. So it makes a huge difference. And then Lightblade itself becomes a double HP dump, where it's 3 hit Brave HP and then 5 hit Brave HP. It now activates Addle, which is, before now, the only way you got Addle was when enemies were hitting him. So, this is attack and magic attack by -30%. So it's going to be really good against, mage bosses and things like that. So if he's getting hit by stuff, then Addle goes off. But now he has a way of activating it without having to be hit. And he gets an even longer duration of Peerless Hero. It was originally 8 turns, so it's now 12 turns. So this is a big deal for him as well. And the attack up, like I said earlier, gets extended to the party. And as long as this is breaking or attacking a broken target, you now get a Classification Plus off of this as well. So this all adds up to making him a significantly better character with only some small tweaks to him. Would I go out of my way to pull for him now because of these changes? No. If you have a massive amount of resources after Paladin Cecil and stuff, I'd consider throwing some resources at him. He's great fun to use above all else. You're never going to realistically need him, but Ice, which is his primary element, isn't an element that's resisted all that often, certainly not as much as Holy will be going forward. But it is something to bear in mind for him that he is kind of locked to ice damage. A lot of his stuff is revolved around ice damage, so do bear that in mind as well. He has weaknesses and that still continues forward, but he's now got a lot going for him that he didn't have before with just some minor tweaks. Right, now let's talk about the big gun. Let's talk about Paladin Cecil. Now, if you've followed my channel for a while, you know how much I adore both versions of Cecil in this game. And before we even look at his Eldian burst, he actually does have a lot of things that are really likable about him as he is. He is a holy damage dealer support hybrid that has access to bravery battery attacks in things like Saint's Ball, a healing attack in Holy Flame. You get really major auras and framed buffs and things like that from using these. He gets an HP plus and a bravery plus that's actually pretty good. His C65 is a holy enchant for the party as well, and this is going to be something that's going to come up a lot more going forward as well. But he also gets these, like I said, he gets the Brilliant Sword and he gets the Divine Shield buffs, which are party-based auras that increase defense, attack, max bravery, speed, all sorts of things. He increases loads of stuff for himself. But the total party auras he has as of right now, so before we've even begun looking at his LD or anything, are 40% attack to the party, 30% max bravery, 80% defense, and max HP plus 10% as well. And then he's got brave regen and HP regen. He's kind of got everything in a nice, bowed up package all at once. And then when we go and look at his EX attack as well, Paladin Force actually extends the duration of both of those buffs for however long, and it's a normal recast rate, so it's quite quick off the bat as well. You're also going to get Holy Resist down from this as well, which is a big deal, especially given that he's now a Holy Enchant and Imperiler, so much like Kuja, he has that going for him. And much as it pains me to admit it, there's a lot of things that Cecil does that Kuja doesn't, and power creep is a thing, but you can actually use them both together, and it's absolutely savage. And then with his EX Plus, you'll see that it becomes a 6-hit Brave HP attack with splash damage. You get your EX gauge you start with your EX gauge, which is huge. It's a double HP dump, in between those attacks you get HP attacks and everything. He starts with his buff. He then gets another buff called Light to Rend the Dark, which is the party-based attack and max bravery that I was talking about earlier. He's just very well-rounded. He was never amazing at anything, really, until this point. But he just kind of did a little bit of everything. He was a decent damage dealer, he had Enchant in Peril, he had the party auras, he's got healing, he's got batteries, he's kind of got a little bit of everything. And then we come to this thing. Mythgraven Blade's LD ability is absolutely foul. It is unreal. On top of the fact that he gets everything else, it's an incredible move. So we have a 8-hit AoE Brave HP attack with split damage, which doesn't sound like much, but When we come to it as well, you'll see that with the LD boards, this does get expanded into being a double HP dump as well. Again, gives Holy Resist down as well. Fully heals the party. So 100% of HP damage dealt will convert to at least 60% of max HP, and this can overflow as well. And then you get HP recover, like as with any healing ability these days, you get HP recovery, like excess over into bravery. You then also get a free ability use on the next turn as well. So if you're wanting to use the Holy Enchant, because his buffs last practically indefinitely as long as you're careful with what you're doing, he can then like be a more consistent enchant imperiler, just like Onion Knight can now. But Entrusted Crystal is the ability that you really want to be looking at. So party's max HP overflow limit is increased by 30%. So like I said, when you're using this LD, you're gonna go over 100% on HP. You also get 120% defense up, which is on top of the defense that he's already giving from his buffs. And while his HP is 100% or higher, party bravery damage is increased by 50%, and HP damage is increased by 20. This is backbreaking. Like, Balthier had 20% and 20%, and he was already considered really good, and didn't have half the tools that Paladin Cecil has. And on top of that, he also lowers party's HP damage that are taken by 20% as well. So, on top of all these major defensive buffs, HP regen, and all of that stuff, he's just got stuff for days. Like, he does everything, and 50% bravery increase is huge. Like, I cannot state that enough. And don't get me wrong either. Don't discount characters like Balthier and Kuja, because Paladin Cecil does this. You can use them both. Because Paladin Cecil is brought along to so many events and things like that, he pairs up really well with a lot of these characters that do the same thing as him, because you double up on those effects, such as Kuja with the framed Holy Imperil, the framed like Holy Enchant, because Cecils aren't framed, they're slightly different, then you can stack them on top of each other. Balthier having the HP damage plus and the Brave damage plus on top of the things that you can do with Cecil. It's just magnificent what you can do with it. And Entrusted Crystal lasts for 12 turns, and you have 4 uses of this, and he's a character with a burst weapon. So this is just going to last the entire fight. Like, this is going to last for ages and ages and ages. So it's just extremely powerful. However, I will say that because Cecil is locked to holy damage, you will notice that more holy events do come up that absorb holy, that lock you out of taking Cecil. It's very similar to what we had with lightning, where thunder absorption became more common. It didn't stop lightning from being ridiculous, but that's just something to bear in mind. You could probably still take Cecil to a lot of these. Like, his LD really is that good. It's just magnificent. And then of course he has a burst weapon as well. So not only is this another use of his LD, you also get 100% AoE on his burst attack as well, and then you get a 5-turn party-wide burst effect that increases bravery damage dealt by 50%, again, on top of the LD, and then you get, like, HP will restore to 10%, so you get HP regen as well. Then you get a brave regen equal to your HP at the start of the turn, and while your HP is at least 100%, your max brave damage limit goes up by 20%, and your max HP and brave damage limit go up by 10%. So this is literally the icing on the cake. Like, you're going to want all of this stuff to be able to deal with the amount of damage you're churning out because of his LD. Like, you've got all your caps lifted as well. It's just, he lifts the cap on everything. HP, damage, bravery, everything. And like, to have all of this all in one package is unheard of as of this point in the game. And he will last for a very long time. But there are, like, he's not completely without fault. Like I said, he is locked to a particular element. That's pretty much the only real fault I can think of, though, to be quite honest. His Imperil is locked to his EX and his LD, but as long as you're using his EX, which you will be, because it's got a decent recast rate, it's got 2 HP dumps in it, on top of all of the Brave HP lifts that you're getting out of everything else as well. Even his HP Plus, which is a 7-hit Brave HP with splash damage, is going to compound that HP damage plus that you're getting from his LD as well. Like, his HP Plus suddenly becomes really strong. He's got, if you need to be safe, you can use his Bravery Plus, his Light Slash, because that's got a party battery on it as well. it's very difficult to find anything negative to say about Paladin Cecil, and that's why people have been hyping him up as much as they have. It's with good reason. So as I said earlier, with regards to his LD core, the boards and everything, all it does is it splits up the HP dump, so it makes it more efficient, especially with all of the buffs that he's getting from his LD, etc. So it becomes a 3-hit Brave HP, then a 5-hit Brave HP, and it does more weakness damage. So as long as they're not resisting Holy, you're going to be hitting very hard with this. And then his call abilities are actually relatively simple, which is the nice thing about Cecil as well. Like, as much as he sounds like really complicated because he does so much at once, all of his abilities are actually really simple, and he's very easy to use as well, which is great for new players. So Holy Flame is Holy Flame. It's an AoE Brave HP with split damage that heals, and you also get a defense up buff out of it. So with regards to like characters that have healing based calls, you could probably find better than this, but it's still nice to have as well. And then Luminous Shard does exactly what it does as an LD, just without the bit that you really want from it, which is the Entrusted Crystal buff. So you get a massive heal out of it. You also get the Holy Resist down out of it. You also get the max HP overflow part of the Entrusted Crystal and the defense up part of it, but you don't get the Brave and HP damage up, which is the bit that you really want. But like I said, as calls go, it's not bad. The chances are, however, if you're using Cecil, it's going to be in your party, not as a call ability. His artifacts wise, he's got a C50 that helps him, that raises all of his stats as long as his HP was at max at the start of the fight, so this is great for any single wave Lufenia fight. And then attack, obviously, you're always going to want attack. And even his high armor is good. Like, it's Unity Keystone, which is honestly one of my favourite ones out of all of them. Like, I love the Tactics Keystone, which Kam'lanaut has. I love the Unity Keystone, which Cecil has. And I like the Damage Keystone because you just kind of have that with any damage dealer. Honestly, like I said, it's very, very hard to find faults within Cecil's kit. He's just pretty good to busted at everything. And it's hard to argue with him. So now let's talk about the event that comes along with Cecil and Kam'lanaut, and honestly this is actually a relatively easy one, particularly because of how many people are likely to pull for one of the biggest synergy characters for it, which is Cecil. Now the Hellworm, it's one of those bosses where the Lufenia Orb, if you're taking the right characters, may as well not even exist, because it's one that requires you to heal from any skill, so not HP regen, very important to know. Just like Rude's event, it has to come from a skill, but you get +7 to the turn count for every character you heal, up to a maximum of 15. So while the cap isn't very high, you're going to be able to use healing abilities frequently enough that you won't have to worry about this all that much. Now, you have to keep in mind that this thing is weak to Holy and Ice, but is resistant to Magic and Lightning and Earth, so you have to be careful who you pick and choose to take to this particular event. The orb, by the way, starts at the start of the fight for 12 turns and dissipates when you hit under 80% HP, and then it comes back again at 50% until it dies. But basically you have to fight the Hellworm, which has a pretty hefty amount of HP at 9 million, and then a Maria mannequin that comes along with it that will get resummoned periodically, as well as after using its recast ability, which is a Mass Dispel, Mass Cleanse, AoE HP attack that ignores all HP and Bravery damage reductions, so you need to have a lot of health for this, which obviously Cecil does. But Cecil's not the only character that you can take along for this. If you happen to have Cecil and Rude, you can literally just laugh at this mission. Rude and the pair of them together is just ridiculous, because obviously Cecil's healing off of a large number of his abilities, and then Rude is obviously batterying that and amplifying that with his combination blows attack. It just makes for a really safe sort of attack where your bravery is just constantly full, so you won't have to worry about that. Kam'lanaut can come along to this because he is weak to ice, and his damage reduction, like his Adult debuff, and all of the buffs that he's got as well, because some of his frame buffs are actually like anti-magic buffs as well, so that helps a lot with reducing the amount of damage that you take. And he's not immune to paralyze either. In fact, he's not immune to an awful lot. So if you've got Arciella, you can always bring her along and use HP Silence, and because she's a healer as well, she takes care of the orb. There's actually a lot of characters that you can take to this, because you can even like take delay mechanics and like Amiditelian and Ultimecia, characters like that. Maybe not, well, Amiditelian more so because of the magic resistance. But the fact that you can just eliminate their turns and not really worry about it because the orb is reliant on what you're doing on your turn and has nothing to do with what the enemy is doing, you can actually make it really easy for yourself. So even if you don't want to take out a Mid-Italian or anything, just take in a Mid-Italian friend unit and just do it that way, because the Holy Enchant in Peril is going to help you out with that anyway. So you just... It's actually relatively simple, and the fact that Kam'lanaut or rather Paladin Cecil is such a popular character, most people are going to have the means to do this by the time it comes out. So now we come to the, well, not so really big question, because everyone kind of already knows the answer to this, but should you be pulling for Cecil and by extension Kam'lanaut? Big yes. Big yes. If you want a character who does literally everything that the game really needs from you, like he's a competent damage dealer, he's got multiple HP dumps in his EX, his LD, and then obviously a burst means he carries a lot more weight with him and can get extra uses out of him. He's a healer, he's a battery, he's an aura carrier, like a strong one at that, an Enchant Imperiler with free skills, so he's got massive longevity, his HP and Brave Pluses are competent, he carries the strongest HP Bravery Plus aura in the game, beating out characters like Onion Knight, Lightning, and then Balthier even, and that's even without his burst. Then he's just not one you realistically want to miss out on unless you straight up don't like him for whatever reason, or you don't have the resources to pull on him. I will say, if you can't pull on him, don't panic. Like, it's not like if you miss out on him, you'll not be able to clear content, because that's strictly not true. There are loads of characters that are perfectly capable of dealing with all of the Lufenias that are coming up if you don't happen to have Paladin Cecil. But fact of the matter is, he's very simple, he's very strong, he has a burst, but I would suggest pulling for the LD, and as with any burst character, not necessarily going and pitying the burst and getting overexcited, because the two other banners that come with him are also very good, carrying Kais and Gabrant's LDs, so don't get overexcited and go ham and pull for the burst and pity it straight away, because you don't even need it. Like, his LD is on its own is really powerful, but if you have burst tokens or anything like that, this is a character that you want to consider using them on. This is the character that I'm most certainly considering using them on if I don't get his burst through any of his banners. With regards to Kam'lanaut, I don't think you should be pulling for him if you don't have Cecil. Like, if you don't have Cecil, your resources should be going to him. Even though Holy Absorb becomes more of a thing, we've seen this happen before with Lightning. Loads of bosses ended up absorbing Thunder, didn't stop her from being amazing. The same thing is going to apply to Cecil. I did a little bit of research and stuff, and between now and Divine Alexander, which is months away, we have 7 events that are going to absorb Holy. So it's more than average, definitely, but it isn't going to stop Cecil from being really good. So don't let that dissuade you. But if you happen to get Cecil really easily, or if you've got loads of resources after you have Cecil and don't already have Kam'lanaut, his LD boards do make him significantly better. They make him more streamlined. Like, they make it like his LD makes it so that you get Addle, and it makes it so that you get Classification Plus. His Brave Plus is now a really legitimate move, whereas before it was kind of a means to an end to get to Classification Plus, and now it's actually useful in many more ways, and he gets more auras. He is definitely worth looking at. I don't think that you should go out of your way for him if you're struggling for resources after Cecil, because there are more pressing characters coming. But if you happen to have a lot, and you pull to Kam'lanaut, I guarantee you're not going to be disappointed with him, because he's actually got a lot going for him that people kind of brush aside because they just think of him back in the EX days when he wasn't particularly good. But his LD does make a significant upgrade to him. So honestly, everything go to Cecil LD first, not burst, LD. Then, if you've got loads of resources, maybe wait until Kais and Gabrantha have come out. Then if you've got resources after that and you still don't have Paladin Cecil's burst, you could then go back for Kam'lanaut as another way of trying to get Cecil's burst if you wanted it, or you could spend your burst tokens and then leave it there. And then finally, it's time for Would You Pull, the section of the video where you, the viewer, get your chance to voice your opinions on any given banner and whether you would or wouldn't pull on it and why. Now, I'm fairly sure you can probably see where this graph is gonna go, but it's actually the very first time that there has been 0% of the people who I've asked, so thank you very much to my patrons once again for your votes and your comments, and bear in mind there are quite a lot of people voting on these polls now, but this is the very first time that 0% of people have said no, they're not going to pull on this banner. Only 3% of people said that they were going to use less than 100 tickets, 22% said that they were going to use 100 tickets or more, and a whopping 76% of people said that they were just going to go straight in for gems on this banner. Now, I can see the temptation to use tickets because as somebody who has his EX already and is interested in his other banners, so Kai'Sa and Gabranth, there's a part of me that wants to be cheeky and try and get the ELD with tickets, but honestly, I'm probably just going to go straight in with gems to save the heartache. But going into some of the comments, most of them are fairly similar. So Grayson Snyder says gems, look at the graph, which I can't really argue with that. Sakuraba Neku says, I will go gems on this mainly because while good, the Honor banners with the burst don't seem that alluring for me, and I've seen videos which show the potential of Cecil is not to be skipped so easily. And then Goose says, gems for Cecil is a given, but I'll be going in heavy with tickets for my boy Cam. Very much a luxury pick, but his kit is so unique, tons of boss disruption with his Paralyze and Addle and his LD boards just to help him make him that more consistent. So basically, everything that I've said has been mirrored before like by a lot of other people. There's basically, it's just very hard to say no to Cecil, and if you're not pulling on him and you have a reason why you're not pulling on him, I would love to hear from you, because I'd like to know what it's like for people who feel differently and feel that maybe he's underwhelming. I don't think there's going to be many people that think that, but I would like to hear from you if there are. Striking says, of course, Cecil is our next game-breakingly good unit, and the best part is that his burst isn't necessary for him to be incredible. I'll still be tokening the burst if I don't pull it, as it'll help for Transcendence. I'll be going straight for my gems here. Kam'lanaut, on the other hand, will have to be a skip, as I need to keep resources available for maybe Kai'Sa or for, but definitely for Gabranth, and Kam'lanaut is one of those units that I feel would build him up and then probably only use him once. So I agree with this. I do think that Kam'lanaut is definitely much more of a luxury unit than Cecil would be, but he's still good. It just depends on how much you're planning on using him. And then finally, Orbacan says 100 plus tickets for me. I'm willing to drop all 999 if needed, since he's basically essential for future content. While I have no attachment to the character, Dark Knight's way cooler in my opinion. I disagree, but we'll get to that another day. No one can deny this guy is bonkers. He provides so much for the party all at once and complements so many other characters like Lightning. He's 100% a headache saver, and life will be easier with him in your roster. I will of course tap into gems if all of my tickets vanish. So that's a strong statement. Using all of your tickets and your gems to get to that LD, it's a strong statement. But it's one that's there for a reason. If you watch a lot of JP clears for future content, a lot of them are going to be using Cecil. Not all of them, and I will say again, if you're unable to pull for Cecil, don't panic. He does actually return later on alongside Warrior of Light and Sephiroth when Sephiroth gets his burst upgrade, so he does return later on. But if you want to get the most out of a character, you want to get them on their release, and that's definitely the case for Cecil. Cecil, by the time he comes back, a lot of other characters will have risen to the occasion and done really, really strong things as well, but right now, there's just no one quite like him. So that's going to be it for today's video. It's a nice big long one to contrast with the very short one that I made yesterday. But I hope that you guys have enjoyed it. Don't forget to sound off in the comments below if you want to talk to me about whether you're pulling for Cecil, whether you're pulling for Kam'lanaut, how much you're willing to pull for Cecil. If you're not pulling for him, then I'd really love to hear from you guys. And of course, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications. And I will hopefully see you guys on Twitch, ready for when Cecil comes out, and hopefully he'll be nice to me, because, well, I've not had the greatest of weeks, and I'd love a nice little pick-me-up. So hopefully Cecil will come and heal me, and that'd be really good. So anyways, that's going to be it from me, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you ever so much for joining me, and I'll see you then. Bye.